Alright, so yeah, these old characters do exist. Like that guy. That maybe one day even I will be able to build and put to good use. Until that day comes, we're going to take a look at what you guys have to share.
Let the lesson begin.
What's up guys, Akariss here, bringing another Fire Emblem Heroes video. Today's video is another monthly hero review where the community sends in their favorites, their most meta, whatever characters you honestly want to send in to me, and I pick a few, mostly at random, and share them with you guys. So here they are. So I've gone through another list of cool characters and heroes that people are still actively using in today's Fire Emblem Heroes metagame in whatever modes, and we will share that with you in today's video. As always, if you want to also take part in this sort of thing, goes to my Patreon and the description below, where you can sign up and support the content I do, and as a bonus treat you get access to the Discord and of course the opportunity to be in these videos, plus some other stuff like the should you pull videos and of course my heartfelt thanks. So yeah, before we begin, smash the like button, sub if you haven't already, at least the very least you can do, and that will help us get further reach. And of course, I continue doing these sort of things because I'm sure a lot of you do like to see what exactly people use even in 2021 that isn't Fallen Edelgard, I guess. So, anyways, guys, so starting off with Mr. Tamil here, who submits a Raven that he apparently uses for AR offense and PvE content, which makes sense because I'm seeing Surge Sparrow with a damage special in Luna. These builds, I'm going to critique them a little bit, just give you my opinion, but I do understand that sometimes it's not always super practical to use these type of characters. I do actually have a plus 10 Raven myself that I used to use in Arena, but unfortunately G-Duel 3 is not as good as G-Duel 4, and although Raven is still pretty usable in a lot of content, I think he's still one of the better Gale Force units, and definitely his weapon isn't as outdated as some characters could be. It's still a slaying weapon. It's still technically L&D, which you can definitely use. Even the lower defense and res could be advantageous. So Raven is okay as a green infantry. Definitely aged a bit better than someone like Soren, for example. I can appreciate that. Surge Sparrow Luna is pretty awesome for someone like him because he actually can get some mileage out of it as a sort of like aggressive carry healing kind of situation, but it is what it is. So next up on our list here is Joshua, submitted by Craig. And honestly, with Josh, I think I consider him a bit better than initially when I first saw his refined, because there's a couple of things that I now can say with confidence, and that's like Josh ends up being one of the heaviest, like highest stat units that can access 20 Dragon Flowers, on top of his weapon providing 4 to all stats and just a flat base 5 res. So he ends up being very stat heavy for a really older unit, but on top of that, as being someone who's used like Fjorm with Mirror Stance 3 and having a guard effect, I can now appreciate it more, so that he has that guard effect is actually pretty nice, because it means if you're not like running something like null follow-up, then you can be susceptible to like bold fighter or auto follow-up effects, especially if they have some sort of special like Gale Force or Bonfire, and just being able to like stop those with guard effect is really nice. So I actually appreciate Josh a bit more, and I think he's pretty awesome. The fact that he can also run like Steady Breath Seal helps a lot when you combine it with Distant Counter. A lot of those units really benefit from it, and having guard on the weapon is icing on the cake with the amount of stats he has. On top of that, a lot of these reviews that we're going to see today are finally using Ascended Floret, so that's pretty awesome to see how committed everyone truly is. So yeah, Josh, pretty nice, kind of like it. Next up here is a submission by Michael, and that is the newest, like one of the more newer refines, and I did talk about Tharja recently as well, but what I think happens is generally the meta may shift to favor this sort of weapon and this hero in general. So Bridal Tharja is interesting because her weapon is a daunt effect, meaning that it debuffs units as long as she's within range, and that being able to debuff like speed and res within 3 foes, especially when combined with some save skills, is always good, as we know with Hanoka Warrior Princess, the bow version, and other units like Asher, for example, can work, or George. Like, there's a lot of these characters. Now, what I like is that Tharja doesn't fit into the current meta, but if you use saves with like casters like tomes or dragons, then Tharja fits in really nicely with those ones, and that is definitely where she can see place. Although Mike here does showcase this Tharja as more of an arena unit, as we can tell by the double rally, the ruptured sky, but also it likely would have a place as well in PvE content. Kind of cool. I like Tharja, so it's nice showcase there. Next up is a submission by Jam, who shows us a Picnic Flora. Now, I think some people forgot the Picnic Flora even existed. A lot of seasonals kind of like come and go, so this makes sense. But her weapon is actually pretty awesome, and it would get a refine at some point. Essentially, she checks the res between her and her foes, and then debuffs attack and defense, which is really nice considering that she has an effective against beast range weapon. She also has access to save skills, which again makes her even better. So Flora is one of those like under the radar kind of characters when you consider that more beasts or more oppressive beasts like Fallen Edelgard exist. And if you were to throw in something like Bold Fighter, well, all of a sudden Flora is a pretty solid anti-meta, or just I hate Fallen Edelgard type of unit that exists in the game. And you wouldn't need to even do something like +8 or +15 as shown here. It probably wouldn't take more than like a +1 to work that out on something like defense even, as you can see by the animal blessing here. I do appreciate that some of these hidden gems exist and we can finally review them in these sort of videos. And there is an Ascended Floret on the res, which makes complete sense with the weapon synergy and the attack stat giving you even more of a punch through effective damage. So that's pretty cool. Next up is a submission by Alt F4 Ninja, who is showcasing one of the oldest refines and characters that we all know from like the Fire Emblem series, or should I just say Smash Bros. Melee? Yeah, Marth. So I actually like this weapon quite a bit, and in Arena it makes a lot of sense, but it also works in AR offense as a like support multiple units kind of thing. But in Arena, I think it's a bit underappreciated because it is an effective dragon weapon, which you do still see a few dragons in Arena. And on top of that, it has a renewal effect, which is always really good in Arena for somebody who you may want to have multiple combat sessions. So as someone who has ruse support, who has essentially 2 to all stats within 2 spaces, doing all these drives and stuff, he's a great support unit. Whereas Corrin, you want to like super pump one unit. Marth is like, my whole team is going to be stacked, and I think he's still useful. Like, he's still pretty good in today's game. It's just Marth, so we've been overexposed to his presence too much at this point. Anyways, next submission is by Lone Fajita, who submits a really high investment Har. There is a lack of a Ascended Floret there, but that's okay. We don't have too many to throw around, and maybe we use other stuff more. This Har obviously can see a lot of use in a lot of modes, specifically like Arena and Water Season for sure. I've used Har myself in Arena Assault quite a bit, and he can take like almost no damage from a lot of the water legendaries, which is pretty nice. Crom, looking at you. But yeah, it's kind of cool. Especially in like PvE content, I could see him working, but the extent of Har is limited beyond that scope, unfortunately, because he doesn't have a preference weapon at this time. And in AR, he's going to see pretty limited use because of the lack of a preference weapon. So it is what it is, but at least we did get an Unbound Axe, which is basically Dex Swabber, and that is a good weapon to have on your characters. Next up is a submission by Zeno, who gives us a Regan. Now, honestly, I've been using Regan at base kit with like no flowers and no investment since her release, and I've had a pretty okay time. But if you actually want to level up your Regan game, then a Wings of Mercy, Savage Blow, Gale Force, Heavy Blade Seal, a lot of like different ways you can approach this on Regan all work really nicely. The way that Zeno here likely uses his Regan is he goes in, hits something like twice with Regan. She has damage reduction on initiation, cantos back to a dancer like Plumeria, goes back in, and with Fury 4 recoil damage, she's going to have enough of a enough recoil to set up a Wings of Mercy chain. Basically, not even not requiring the heavy blade usage. So that's pretty awesome. Good way to actually give someone else the heavy blade seal, for example, and chip down with Savage Roll and set up a really nice sweep. Combine that with potentially even Kanto on follow-up turns, and you have one of the best mythics in the game. When it comes to Astra, it's easily Plumeria and Regan being the best mythics you can use there, and it doesn't really take much investment to make them great. So, awesome unit. Can't say much more. Next up is a submission by Ghostling, who's going to give us Keaton. And again, I feel like when it comes to like characters who can really fit in on some people's rosters, Keaton is likely one of those. Keaton has a very min-max stat spread where he dumps a lot of his defense and res and then pumps up his attack and defense, which is exactly what you would want him to do, considering something like Water Season where Dimitri and Crom are the most oppressive and annoying things you run into. But also having a low res stat as a green unit is actually advantageous for being able to bait out someone like Legendary Azura, who we have seen more often lately, and will likely see even more when Grey Waves gets its skill refine, and that's going to be pretty terrifying. So this is pretty solid. He gets some true damage as well off of his weapon. He gets more defense, he lowers enemy defense, and essentially he should have no problem securing kills against a lot of the water legendaries, except Byleth, because that guy's pretty good, and that's not going to do it. But essentially, if you have a place to put Keaton with something like Blue Flame, I assume there's another beast there on the team, or a dragon perhaps, who will kind of allow him to transform and take advantage of his nice damage out of Blue Flame. That Woe effect, Wrath, and of course that he's an infantry beast is all cool, and I can definitely appreciate that existence. Next up is finally the last submission of today's video, which is a Niles by Tej. So at some point, I myself am also looking to build Niles. Hopefully we just get like an arena bonus season. That'd be pretty good reason for me to be able to commit to him with my resources. But this is not actually the standard type of Niles build that I would have expected. This is actually a Deadeye PvE, still an AR type of sweep build, which actually works fine with his weapon, all things considered, because he does have a slaying weapon, he does have that +7 shining bow effect, and that flashing blade as well. So he doesn't have to use flashing blade like in the seal. He can pump up his, let's be realistic, pretty low attack stat, but with that you're able to kind of make him self-sufficient as a sweeper cleanup unit in Astra. And if you have a bunch of melee mythics like I do, like Altina, Naga, and Regan, then throwing in a random sweeper unit to be able to clean up, get pots, or just snipe problem units is pretty nice. So thank you to everyone who did submit this round of showcases. Again, I do this monthly, and if you want a chance to be featured, then check out my Patreon. Consider, for the price of basically a McDouble, supporting the content that I do, that I put the time and effort for you guys to enjoy and hopefully get something out of this. And then I give back by hopefully giving you some value in appreciating the sort of investment and effort that you put into your heroes, and also listening to your opinions when it comes to should you pull, would you pull videos, and other cool stuff that we do in the server, including streams. So thank you guys. Smash the like button, sub if you haven't already. Let me know in the comments below who you're most proud of as your investments. Go ahead and share that. I'm sure I will go through and read them as well. And thank you guys. I'm out of here. See you in the next one. Peace.
It's over.